But unleashing the power of not-for-profits was a theme at the 2012 Connecting Up conference in Sydney last week. Many speakers emphasised the power of social media and new technology to drive an organisation's message and mission. One of the keynotes was delivered by Michael Sheldrick of the Global Poverty Project. Through integrated communications, Michael managed the End of Polio campaign and raised $100 million from the government for polio eradication efforts. I spoke with him recently about the key ingredients when it comes to combining online campaigning with grassroots campaigning to really build a global movement and drive change.
Fundamentally, I mean, it's as true as 100 years ago as it was today. It's about having a good story. It's about having a good narrative to tell. But obviously, it's about making use of the tools we have available today. Social media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. These are the things that we can combine to really reach out and make a difference in the world.
What do you say? I mean, what is your message to organisations about why integrated communication, that's social media combined with mobile, combined with traditional methods, why that's so crucial to their fundraising?
Well, I think today, if you have a look at the statistics, you know, an overwhelming amount of people use social media today. I mean, people of my generation, the so-called Generation Y, we live on Facebook, on Twitter, on our mobile phones, and yet if you look at the statistics of not-for-profits in Australia, only 5% of Australian not-for-profits actually use social media in their existing fundraising or marketing strategies. You know, we need to step up.
Michael, what would you say are some of the better examples of or case studies in effective use of social media to fundraise? Obviously, your The End of Polio campaign is one of them. Can you point to any other best practice cases in Australia or around the world?
Well, I think if you look at a campaign we've recently run in connection with a number of other not-for-profits, a couple of weeks ago when we heard rumours that the government was potentially putting foreign aid on the back burner in the federal budget, we got together and we put a clarion call out on Twitter, and in the space of a couple of hours our hashtag Don't Cut Aid was trending nationally, which became a national sensation. It got even more media and news reports around it.
But how do you build a movement like that and drive change, just knowing that, you know, there is so much noise on the internet? There was a great article in the New York Times recently, and the headline was From Flash to Fizzle. They described the news cycle as like fireworks. One day we're all on a topic, everyone wants to talk about it, like Kony 2012, perfect example. You know, there's a desire for change, political leaders get involved. A couple of days later, it's dropped off the radar, it's no longer trending on Twitter, we're not even talking about it now. How do you cut through all that?
Look, I think fundamentally, and I would say, I think the Kony 2012 campaign was brilliant in its awareness, but I think at the end of the day, you've got to have a clear ask that supporters can go to. You've got to direct them into fundraising. You've got to give them a clear example of success. People these days, they need to show instantly the success of their actions. If you can't communicate that, they're going to fall away. And I would say with the Kony 2012 campaign, although they did great at raising such awareness, it wasn't really clear to supporters, say in Australia, how they can get involved and help the effort. And I think that that's the key. You've got to build on that and direct your supporters to translate it into real action. It's not about just liking a page on Facebook or retweeting. You've got to actually take them through and translate that into real action. And supporters are looking for that.
You mentioned the lack of use of social media by not-for-profits and by the sector in general. The Connecting Up summary report of non-profit e-business in Australia did quite a major survey. 1,485 charities were part of it, and it revealed that really digital literacy is something they are not keeping up pace with. 25% of not-for-profit organisations are lagging. What are the implications here, more broadly?
Look, I mean, I think the implications are telling in themselves. I think when you look, again, a telling statistic is that 56% of Australian not-for-profits say that they don't have the staff capability to train up their staff teams in how to use social media. And I think, look, you know, the traditional NGOs out there, if you look at their budget sheets, particularly in a time of economic austerity and global financial crises, I think think you need to use all the tools you can. And I think that unless we keep up with the trends in technology, fundraising, cutting through, influencing key policy decision makers, this is all going to become a lot more harder.
Yeah, I was wondering what you think the government can do to actually support the sector, because I know the Connecting Up report called for more government support to improve that digital literacy, and especially considering the government's new National Digital Economy strategy. So what do you think the government can do in this field?
Well, I would say I think the Charities and Not-for-Profit Commission is certainly a step in the right direction. But I think, if you look at the Connecting Up reports, more funding is going to be required to the sector. They don't receive anywhere near this funding that small businesses do. And I think when you look at not-for-profits, they contribute $43 billion to the national economy. I think there's a compelling business case here for support.
Are you talking long-term there? Because we know governments, well, right around the world, we'll say here in Australia as well, strapped for cash. The spending cuts that we'll see in the budget, in the May budget, are huge. So what do you do in the meantime?
Well, I think you're right. So I would note that Australia is has one of the lowest levels of debt amongst OECD countries, and we do have this strategy to it by 2020 in terms of our use of social media and digital technology to put us in the top 5 of OECD countries. Look, I think what we do in the meantime is we keep on putting the case to government, but I think the best way we can do that is demonstrate how it's effective, and for that to work, NGOs need to step up and start adapting to existing technology to actually show how this can be effective.